It was 2 in the morning when someone knocked on the door. Not softly, not violently, but with the kind of certainty that said whoever stood outside expected it to be opened. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of an old refrigerator and the distant rain tapping the windows. He pulled on a jacket, already tired before the day had begun again, and opened the door to find her boss standing there, hair damp from the storm, coat too clean for the neighborhood, eyes sharp despite the hour. Behind him, somewhere in the dark hallway, his daughter stirred, confused by the sound. The boss didn't greet him. She stepped closer and said his name like it was a warning, then reminded him of the words he had spoken earlier that day in the company meeting, about broken schedules, about promises made on paper that didn't survive real life, about how hard it was to keep machines running when the rest of life kept breaking down. She asked him to say it again. Dared him to. That was when his daughter appeared, small and barefoot, clutching the back of his legs, as if the night itself had followed the knock inside. He felt her fingers tighten through the fabric of his pants. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply repeated it, slowly, clearly, with the same calm he used when fixing things that refused to work, that he wouldn't lie about needing time when his child needed him, that he wouldn't pretend everything was fine just to make someone else comfortable. The rain grew heavier. The boss looked past him, took in the narrow hallway, the scattered school papers, the quiet proof of a life built around someone smaller than herself. She said nothing more before turning away. The door closed. The night swallowed her footsteps. Inside, he lifted his daughter, felt her breathing steady against his shoulder, and wondered why a complaint about broken schedules had been important enough to follow him home at 2 in the morning. At work, the boss no longer raises her voice, and the change is felt before it is understood, like a machine that suddenly runs quieter but more efficiently. She watches instead of commanding, notices patterns others miss, the way he arrives early without making noise, the way he checks a panel twice before closing it, the way he never leaves a job half done even when no one is watching. A company social worker begins to appear more often, walking through the floor with a clipboard, asking careful questions, observing without judgment, and somehow always crossing paths with him near the end of his shifts. During lunch, the boss stops sitting with managers and chooses a table closer to the maintenance area, close enough to see, far enough not to interrupt. She eats slowly, listening more than speaking, her attention drawn to how he works through his break, repairing a jammed printer with one hand while finishing a sandwich with the other, never rushing, never cutting corners. When a coffee machine fails, he doesn't curse it or strike it. He opens it gently, studies the problem, adjusts a loose part, and waits to be sure before stepping away. The boss notices how coworkers begin to wait for him instead of calling supervisors, how problems seem smaller once he is near them. She sees the same steadiness in the way he answers questions, short and honest, and in how he declines overtime without apology when school hours demand it. Nothing is announced. No rules are rewritten. Yet the atmosphere shifts. Schedules breathe. Voices lower. The company runs not faster, but cleaner. And from where she sits, watching him work with quiet focus, the boss begins to understand that what stood on her doorstep at 2 in the morning was not defiance, but a man refusing to let his life be run like a broken machine. Schedules change without announcements, not posted on boards or sent by email, but felt in the quiet way his mornings began to shift. One day he leaves 10 minutes later. Another day he comes home before the sun sinks fully behind the buildings. No one explains it. No one needs to. At work, he notices the difference in small ways. A supervisor pauses before assigning overtime. A clipboard lingers, then moves on. His name is penciled in softer hours, erased and rewritten with care. He doesn't comment. He simply shows up when expected and leaves when allowed, carrying the same calm with him. Meals slowed down. At lunch, he no longer eats standing beside a humming machine. He sits, chews, breathes. Across the room, the boss pretends to read reports while watching how he folds a napkin, how he cleans his hands before touching anything new, how he finishes what he starts without rushing the end. At home, evenings stretch wider. The apartment doesn't feel like a hallway between obligations anymore. His daughter spreads her homework across the kitchen table, pencils rolling, eraser crumbs gathering like snow. He moves nearby, fixing a loose cabinet hinge, aligning screws in a neat row before choosing the right one. She asks questions while he works. Not about the machines, but about the day. Who broke what? Who waited? Who smiled? He answers without drama, tightening a screw until it resists just enough. He listens more than he talks, letting her words fill the room where noise used to live. Later, he repairs a flickering lamp, then a stubborn drawer. Each fix is small, almost invisible, but together they steady the place. His hands remember patience. He wipes tools clean before setting them down. Outside, traffic hums, distant and unimportant. At work the next morning, a printer jams near the offices. Someone calls for him, not loudly, not urgently. He arrives, opens the panel, studies the mess of paper like a puzzle instead of a problem. The boss watches from her desk, noticing how people relax once he kneels. She brings her lunch closer again, sits within view, not in command. She notices how he refuses shortcuts, how he reassembles things carefully, how he tests them twice before walking away. She sees the same care in how he checks his watch, calculating time not for profit, but for pickup. That afternoon, the social worker passes by, asks how things are going. He answers honestly but briefly. At home, his daughter finishes homework early and waits, drawing at the table. He fixes a loose chair leg while she hums, unaware of how rare this quiet once was. And as he tightens the final screw, phone vibrating softly in his pocket with a message from work marked urgent, he pauses, unsure whether the balance he's been given is about to be tested. The girl starts drawing someone new without announcing it, without explanation, just a quiet addition to the corners of her pages. The figure is always there, never in the center, never larger than life. Sometimes it stands near a table, sometimes beside a door. Always close, never asking for attention. He notices one evening, while washing dishes. The drawing sits between math worksheets and a folded note from school. He dries his hands, studies it for a moment, then places it back exactly where it was. He doesn't ask who it is. He doesn't need to. At work, the boss begins asking questions instead of giving instructions. They are simple ones. How long a repair might take. Whether a part can be reused. What usually fails first. She listens to the answers without interrupting, nods once, then steps back, letting him return to the open panel in front of him. She starts bringing her lunch instead of ordering it. A plain container. No assistance. No phone calls. She sits beside him at a small table near the maintenance area, close enough to share space, far enough not to intrude. She eats slowly, watching his hands move. He answers when spoken to, briefly, without decoration. He wipes grease from his fingers before touching his food. When he finishes eating, he closes his container and goes back to work. She stays seated a moment longer, as if waiting for something unnamed to settle. The social worker passes by again, makes a note, offers a polite smile. Nothing official happens. No meetings are scheduled. Yet the floor feels different. Conversations lower when they pass. Machines seem to break less often, or maybe they are just fixed sooner. At home, the girl's drawings multiply. The new figure appears beside her father now, drawn smaller than him, angled slightly toward him. Never touching. Never distant. He repairs a loose doorknob while she colors, her legs swinging under the chair. She tells him about her day in fragments. A test. A laugh. A quiet moment. He listens while tightening screws, aligning parts before assembly. When he finishes, he tests the knob twice, then once more, just to be sure. Back at work, a coffee machine sputters. He opens it carefully, replacing a worn seal. The boss stands nearby, not hovering, simply present. When the machine runs again, she thanks him by name. It's the first time she's done that. She sits with him again the next day. The same lunch. The same spot. No conversation unless needed. People begin to treat the table as occupied space, walking around it without comment. Comfort grows there, unnoticed, unclaimed. That evening, as he helps his daughter clean up her drawings, she hesitates before putting one away, glancing up at him as if to ask permission. Before he can respond, his phone buzzes again with a message from work, longer this time, and he feels the quiet shift, preparing him for what the next day might demand. With fewer emergencies pulling him in every direction, balance begins to settle into his days. Not suddenly, but like dust after constant movement finally stops. Mornings no longer feel like a race against failure. He walks his daughter to school more often, their pace unhurried, their steps sinking naturally along cracked sidewalks and quiet corners. She talks about small things on those walks. A classmate who shares crayons. A teacher who smiles a lot. He listens, nodding, adjusting his stride to hers without thinking. When they reach the gate, she lingers a second longer before going in, then turns back and waves. He watches until she disappears. At work, machines run smoother. Or maybe they always could have, if given the right care. Printers hum instead of screeching. Coffee pours without spilling. Doors close properly. Problems still exist, but they arrive one at a time now, manageable, waiting their turn. People stop shouting his name across the floor. They wait. They gather near his station, watching his hands, trusting that he will get there. He notices how the tension leaves their shoulders once he nods, how urgency softens into patience just by his presence. He works steadily, cleaning parts before reinstalling them, aligning components until they fit without force. He doesn't rush the ending anymore. He tests each fix, steps back, then returns for a second look. The work feels less like survival and more like craft. From a distance, the boss watches. She doesn't approach immediately. She times her movements to his breaks, stepping into the same spaces when he pauses. When he sits, she sits somewhere nearby. When he stands, she resumes her walk, careful not to interrupt. She notices how he checks his watch more often now, not out of anxiety, but awareness. She sees him leave on time, not sneaking away, not apologizing. She sees him return the next morning exactly when expected, consistent as any machine she oversees. During one break, she passes behind him, slows, then keeps walking. No words exchanged. Yet something in that shared timing feels intentional, respectful, as if both understand that presence, not pressure, is what keeps things running. At home, evenings remain calm. His daughter finishes homework without reminders. Dinner doesn't burn. He fixes a loose window latch while she reads aloud nearby, stumbling over long words, laughing at herself. He doesn't correct her unless she asks. Later, she sets her backpack by the door on her own. He notices and says nothing. He wipes his tools clean, lines them up in their place, closes the box carefully. The apartment feels held together, not by effort, but by rhythm. At work the next day, a supervisor rushes toward him, starts to speak, then stops, lowering their voice instinctively. The boss stands across the floor, watching the exchange, noting how calm spreads without instruction. As he kneels to inspect another panel, phone resting quietly in his pocket, he senses eyes on him again, closer this time, and wonders whether the balance he's built is about to draw attention that will test how much of it can truly last. The meeting begins like any other, with chairs scraping lightly against the floor and low conversations fading as screens flicker to life. He stands near the back, hands loosely folded, listening without urgency. Presentations usually pass him by. Machines, not meetings, are his responsibility. Halfway through the slide deck, the sound changes. A sharp click. A mechanical whine. Then silence. The main machine stops mid-cycle, the screen freezes, and the room fills with overlapping voices, confusion rising faster than the problem itself. Someone laughs nervously. Someone else sighs. The presenter taps the screen. Nothing happens. A manager leans forward, whispering sharply. The noise grows, layered with impatience, until it feels like pressure against glass. He doesn't move yet. He watches, listening for what the machine is not saying. Then the boss speaks. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't call out a title or a department. She says his name, clearly, once. It cuts through the noise. Conversation stop. Chairs still. The room turns toward him. He nods, sets his notebook down, and walks forward. No rush. No apology. He kneels beside the machine as if it were any other afternoon repair, opening the panel with practiced ease. The inside reveals a tangle of wires and dust, heat trapped where it shouldn't be. Behind him, the room waits. He can feel it, the weight of eyes, the unspoken urgency, the expectation for speed. He ignores it. He traces a line with his finger, checks a connector, loosens a screw just enough to see beneath it. He pauses, listening. Not to the people, but to the machine itself. He disconnects one part, cleans it carefully, then sets it aside. Someone clears their throat. He doesn't look up. Pressure exists only if he accepts it. The boss stands back, arms relaxed at her sides. She doesn't step in. Doesn't explain. She watches his process, recognizes the discipline in refusing shortcuts. Around her, managers exchange glances, surprised by the calm spreading through the room. He replaces a worn component, adjusts alignment, tightens everything back into place with deliberate precision. Before closing the panel, he tests the mechanism by hand. Once. Twice. Only then does he seal it. When he finally stands, the room feels different, quieter, steadier. He nods to the presenter, steps away, returns to his spot without waiting for reaction. The machine hums back to life, slides advancing as if nothing ever happened. The meeting resumes, but attention drifts. People glance at him now, not out of urgency, but recognition. Across the room, the boss meets his eyes briefly, then looks away, as if aware that calling his name changed more than just the outcome of a presentation. He doesn't rush the final steps, even with the room holding its breath. His hands move with the same measured rhythm they always do, tightening screws until they resist just enough, aligning parts until they sit naturally instead of being forced. Time stretches, but he doesn't feel it. The machine responds slowly, like something waking from deep sleep. A low hum returns, uneven at first, then steady. He waits. Listens. Adjusts one last setting no one else would notice. Only then does he close the panel and straighten up. There is no applause. No relieved laughter. Just a collective exhale, quiet and heavy, as if everyone realizes at once how close things came to breaking in a way that couldn't be fixed quickly. The presentation resumes without comment. The boss nods once. It's small, almost imperceptible, but those closest see it. She doesn't smile. She doesn't speak. She simply acknowledges the work as complete, the way someone does when they trust the result. People begin to notice what happened beneath the surface. Not the repair itself, but the choice that preceded it. Who was called? How? When pressure peaked, a name was spoken instead of a title. That detail lingers longer than the malfunction. After the meeting, no one stops him. No one congratulates him. Yet as he walks back across the floor, conversations lower around him. A few heads turn. Someone steps aside without being asked. Space is made naturally. Later that day, a different machine stalls near the offices. A supervisor starts to raise their voice, then stops. They look for him instead. He sees the hesitation, the recalibration, and answers with a nod before they finish asking. The boss crosses the floor once, pauses near his station, then keeps walking. Her timing matches his break again, just slightly offset. It feels deliberate, considered, as if she understands that influence doesn't need an audience. At home that evening, he doesn't mention the meeting. He helps his daughter with a spelling word she keeps getting wrong, sounding it out slowly until she hears the difference herself. When she gets it right, she smiles like she fixed something important. She draws that night. The same figures. The same quiet closeness. He notices that the new one is standing a little nearer now, still not centered, still not touching. He places the paper back where it was. The next morning, his schedule holds. No sudden changes. No messages marked urgent. He walks his daughter to school again, rain threatening but holding off, and feels the days settle into place, like a repaired part finally doing its job. And as he heads to work, tools packed, steps steady, He senses that while nothing was officially said, the machine he stood inside yesterday wasn't the only thing that started running differently. On a rainy afternoon, the boss waits outside the school with an extra umbrella, standing a little to the side so she doesn't block the gate, coat darkened by steady rain. Shoes already wet. Parents cluster close, checking phones, calling names. When the bell rings, the girl bursts through the doors first, backpack bouncing, spotting the umbrella before she recognizes the face holding it. She runs anyway. The boss lowers the umbrella just enough, letting the child slip underneath without hesitation, without instruction, as if this had always been the plan. Moments later, the father appears, scanning the crowd out of habit, then stopping short when he sees them together. Surprise crosses his face, then something softer, something that doesn't need to be sorted out immediately. No one explains why she's there. No apologies are offered. She simply shifts the umbrella so it covers all three of them, adjusting her pace to match theirs as they step away from the gate. The rain isn't heavy now, just persistent, tapping gently against the fabric overhead. They talk as they walk, not about work or schedules or machines, but about a spelling test that went better than expected, about a classmate who shared a snack, about how the rain smells different near the playground. The father listens, occasionally adding a word, occasionally just nodding. The boss listens too, smiling when the girl laughs, holding the umbrella steady even when her arm tires. By the time they reach the corner, the rain has soaked their shoes, and the conversation has settled into an easy rhythm, the kind that doesn't rush toward meaning. When they part ways, there are no promises, no lines drawn forward. Just a shared moment, complete on its own, like something fixed properly and left alone. The father watches as the boss walks off into the rain, then looks down at his daughter, who squeezes his hand once before letting go, already humming as they head home under the same quiet cover.